We are now going to take a look at dynamic variables and plugging those into the URL as a URL variable. So what am I talking about? Well, what I mean is right now we have our pet hard-coded, but what if there's something on the page sitting somewhere where I get some information from the user about what pet they want, and I want to take that information that's saved in computer memory and plug it into this area. How can I let PHP figure out what this value is instead of my hard coding each individual animal? So the first thing we need to do is we need to define a PHP variable so we can play with this. So we'll go out here and we're simply going to say pet equals kangaroo. And since it's just text on the right-hand side, we need it in double quotes. Now notice I'm getting this syntax error. This is a new feature as of Dreamweaver CS5 and 5.5. So if you're using an earlier version, you won't have this little trigger right here, but it kind of lets me know that I have an error. And the error is local variables I create just by putting the name down, must have a $sign in front of them in PHP. And that's why we were getting the error. Now you can see there's no errors. So I have this particular variable here. It's been put into computer memory as $pet. How can I work with it here? Well, first of all, we need to change this code. So I'm going to delete the word dog, and I'm going to put another PHP code block. So you just drop PHP code blocks wherever you need PHP to process. So let's plug in our variable name. Now I simply put the $sign, and this is known as code hints. And any variables we've created, beginning in version CS5 anyway, of Dreamweaver, it will recognize in our code hints. You can certainly use these without a problem in prior versions of Dreamweaver, but this is one of the areas where Dreamweaver has drastically improved beginning with version CS5. So I'll plug in pet just by double-clicking it, and let's see what happens with our page. I'll put it out in the browser. I go to hover on top of it, and notice down below what it says. If I click this, there's no variable called dog or kangaroo or any other animal. Notice our pet equals right in between here where the variable is supposed to go. It's completely blank. We told PHP to process it, but it didn't happen. Why did that occur? Well, what we actually have to do here is, since this is a HTML hyperlink, what we have to do is tell PHP to print this or output it into this area. And the way we printed our first name and last name earlier in the course is we used echo. And that tells PHP to print the value of this variable right here. So I'll save it. Let's put it back in the browser. And when I hover over dog, it now says pet equals kangaroo. And if I click on it, it plugs in kangaroo. So I don't necessarily want a kangaroo in the dog spot, but just to show you how to work with a dynamic variable. Now I could certainly do the same thing and set this to a get variable. So we can work with it the same way we used get on this page. We have our echo get. Notice that echo word is in here too, telling it to output that to the browser. So that word echo is telling PHP, print this out to the browser, and that's exactly what it's doing. So I could plug this in on the other page and just use $. Let me show you. I'll copy this piece. I'm going to define that. So instead of $pet, I'll use a get method variable, and I'll also populate that here. Save the page. So I'm defining a variable with this particular name, and I'm outputting it. So this should work exactly like our local variable did. Pet equals kangaroo, pet equals kangaroo. So that is how you can define a variable and use it elsewhere on the page simply by referencing it as its variable name. So that's how to handle dynamic variables in PHP.